Hollywood has always struggled to portray Asian American characters. They tend to fall into a handful of tropes: the math genius, the kung fu master, the dragon lady, or the accent that only exists to be laughed at. For most of Hollywood's history, those were the choices. Putting any minority on a screen is a loaded task, because when there are so few representations, each one has to speak for the whole group. Scholars call this the burden of representation, and it traps Asian American stories in two ways. Door 1, the character is a flat stereotype. Door 2, the film makes their ethnicity the entire plot, the only thing they're allowed to be about. The best person to ask would be someone who grew up in the situation these films are trying to represent. Daniel Kwan, half of the directing duo The Daniels, grew up Chinese-American in Massachusetts, the son of immigrants from Hong Kong and Taiwan. His father's family ran laundromats in New York, so when Everything Everywhere All at Once opens on a middle-aged Chinese immigrant doing her taxes in a laundromat, instead of being a stereotype, the setting is his childhood. So why does mainstream media keep falling into these two traps? And is there a way to represent a minority without either one? Evelyn Wang is unmistakably a Chinese immigrant. It shapes the struggles she faces. But the movie is never about being Chinese. It's about generational trauma, queerness, nihilism, and love. Her identity is the texture of the story instead of being its subject. Kwan said it himself. He wanted to push past the usual immigrant story, beyond my lunch smelled at school, to a more nuanced representation. Take the model minority myth, the idea that Asian Americans are uniformly hardworking and successful. In a 1997 study, Taylor and Stern showed how American advertising helped manufacture it. On the surface, it sounds like a compliment, but it erases real struggle and it locks people into a role they never chose. Crazy Rich Asians was a milestone, the first major studio film with a majority Asian cast in 25 years. But the Asia it shows is narrow, ultra-wealthy, westernized, and almost entirely East Asian. Scholar Carino Suguino calls it a multicultural redemption story. It celebrates Asian identity, but only the slice that already fits what Hollywood rewards. It widens who gets seen without challenging the values doing the seeing. As an Indian viewer, I have to talk about Never Have I Ever. I get why it's popular, and I'm not saying it's a bad show, but it runs on stereotypes. A strict mom, exaggerated accents, and a heroine who, at first, is ashamed of being Indian. The series treats Devi's culture as something she has to get past in order to integrate into society. Now watch what our third example does instead. The whole first act is just a family drama, a failing laundromat, and an incoming tax audit. The culture is everywhere, it's just not the main point. As the multiverse opens up, the editing turns frantic and overwhelming. Kwan, who was diagnosed with ADHD while making the film, built the chaos to feel like Evelyn's overloaded mind. And the film's central symbol isn't a flag or festival, it's a bagel and a googly eye. The everything bagel is nihilism, the belief that nothing matters. The eye is Wayman's kindness, the choice to care anyways. Two rocks on a cliff, without a single word of dialogue, carry the whole emotional climax. The real conflict here is philosophical, nihilism versus love, not how do I cope with being Asian.
强过的世界，我们都在里面绕圈子，这我明白。你和我都在这个地球上活得这么久了。
So when Evelyn finally fights with kindness to reach her queer daughter, the resolution is generational and human. The family is unmistakably Chinese-American and still completely relatable to anyone watching. A year later, Michael Yeoh became the first Asian woman to win Best Actress in 95 years for playing a laundromat owner instead of being a symbol. That's the lesson for the next generation of filmmakers. You don't fix representation by erasing identity, and you don't fix it by making identity the whole story. You write a person so real that our culture is undeniable and besides the point at the same time. Everything, everywhere, all at once.